So Jenn, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mike. I was hoping you were recording because you did such a great job introducing me. As Mike mentioned, Jenn Callahan, owner of liveFire. Excited to talk today. Thank you, Amplify Louisville, for giving me a chance to be a part of Sales Week. The Gen Z group is a tricky one to start to think about as we get into this new way of living with COVID and all of the things happening where people are spending more and more time on their screens. So I think it's very timely to just kind of go through who they are, how they behave, and what it's going to take to reach them. And I think, it's important to identify exactly who they are. There's a few different versions of what date ranges, but typically you're going to see that they're born between the dates of 1996 to 2014, which means they're turning 23, probably entering into the workforce. And they are one of the first generations that of people that actually have no memory of a world that existed without internet or mobile. So they're spending a lot of time on mobile devices, and that makes them somewhat unique. They are important to us because they do account for 40% of consumers. Their buying power is 44 billion, and then that expands into 600 billion when you consider the influence that they have on their parents' spending. 59% of them are pursuing college, and this generation has the most likelihood to have lived with a college-educated parent. So they're super smart and savvy. It is the most diverse group generation compared to generations before them. They are the most non-white and have the most diversity in race and ethnicity. And compared to other generations, the Zers are significantly more creative. They're more likely to do something every single day related to creativity. This is making them the most powerful consumer force in the market today. And the things that are really important to them, and we started to break it down, it really comes down to privacy, values, and trust. So these are the types of things that we encourage brands and services to really think about. They are really interested in having hyper-personal experiences online, particularly in social media, not unlike the generations before them in the millennial space. But they're also very keen to protecting their privacy. They want to know what you're doing with their information, and they're more likely to put that webcam cover on when they're not using it. The thing that stands out about the Zers too is that they are incredibly loyal to brands and services that are going to represent the values that they personally have. This is an important theme that we're seeing throughout brands where they are introducing what their social responsibilities are. They're highlighting that in all of their marketing and ensuring that it really comes through in all of their messaging. This is a great way to connect and keep Gen Zers not just engaged, but loyal long-term. They're trusting their family and friends over anything else. So this makes it really important to be in the communities that they're trusting and engaging in. That might be a forum, that might be very specific groups, or even connecting in those really niche social media outlets. This makes us as marketers really rethink how we have introduced influencers. The Gen Zers want authenticity. So they are going to look for reviews and feedback that is beyond just what is available through the traditional influencers. So when we get into what really it takes to reach them, and truly figuring out how to make marketing click with this younger crowd, it's easier than you think. The most challenging piece of it comes down to you don't have much time. The attention span is very low. They're predicting you have approximately 8 seconds to get their attention, introduce your message and call to action. 8 seconds is not enough time. But the Gen Zers are typically looking at multiple screens, so it's not uncommon for them to be watching something on TV, but also working on their mobile phone. So the best way to introduce your brand, your services to Gen Z really comes down to having something that is entertaining. Content has to be super creative and authentic. To recap, we really, kind of broke it down just to these really 6 simple things. And these are takeaways that you can use as you're introducing and developing new marketing for your company and your services. The things to keep in mind around social media. They are spending time on social media. This is not unlike some of the other generations, like how we've thought through marketing to millennials. So that may not be much different than what you're already doing today, but it is important to keep that first and foremost. We do see a lot of trends with email is not super important to the millennial. Whoops. Wait a second. Sorry. Well, doesn't want to let me go back. There we go. It's going so smoothly. But I was trying to move some things around. Let's see. But yeah, so not email. The millennial or the Gen Zers are having not nearly as much interaction with email as some of the other generations. Mobile is, of course, important, and being having a mobile responsive framework and it being slick. This is an expectation that Gen Zers are going to have more than other generations in the past. If it isn't easy to use, they are more likely to abandon. The thing that we really encourage too is just thinking outside the box when it comes to multimedia. Gen Zers are, they're spending time on gaming and streaming TV, running ads and doing things outside of your traditional digital spaces like social media, podcasts, the things that, we kind of think about as being the traditional digital space. Get outside of that and, introduce your product and brand in the spaces where they're spending time. So, Mike, as I said, I tried to keep it extremely short. So thank you so much for your time, and I'd be happy to open up for questions and have a discussion.
Great, thanks, Jen. What questions do we have for Jen?
Hey, Jen, thanks for your time. Do you see there being a difference in the way you're accessing Gen Zs when it comes to B2C versus upcoming B2B? A lot of them probably aren't so much in the workforce just yet, but as we're getting ready, like just projecting out, do you see anything that businesses should start planning for?
Yeah, I think the most important theme right now is to connect with a value and ensure that the if there is a social responsibility that the company has and that the brand has, that really shines through in all of the messaging and marketing. Gen Zers want to choose brands and services that reflect their lifestyle and their own personal views. So it's incredibly important to tie that into, how the brands are thinking about their messages and where they are and how they connect with that younger generation.
What other questions do we have?
Jenn, have you come across in your research where they are much more fiscally conservative, financially aware, almost to the point where they tend to mirror some of the much earlier generations in retrospect, say, to compare to millennials?
Yes, absolutely. I think the thing that's super unique about this generation is that they have such digital savviness that they are extremely more highly informed. They know how to navigate through researching and understanding, what and who they want to spend their dollars with. So that definitely makes them a little more fiscally responsible than some of the generations prior.
Vanessa in the chat asks, what is the best way to get customer feedback from Gen Z? If email marketing doesn't really work, what would you recommend?
So the engagement is incredibly important on social media. There has been a huge spike in niche social media platforms, whether that's a smaller an app that is very specific to an industry, or if it is, forums are very helpful for being able to create that trusted community. The other thing that's unique for Gen Zers is they really would prefer to chat. Even if it's with a chat bot, they don't want to pick up the phone or really have to deal with email to communicate. So being able to engage in some of those spaces where a trusted community has already been created is the best way to ask questions, get input, whether that's for feedback or product development. That's the space where the Gen Zers are more likely to provide responses and have engagement.
I'd like to add to that answer too, as we learned from yesterday's session with Alex Reed, and you'll be able to go back and watch his video on the content library when it's up on the Amplify website. But Alex mentioned that 99% of text messages are opened. And so I know that a lot of the social media influencers have added a text message option as a means of reaching them. However, this leads to my question, Jenn, which if that is kind of the new marketing frontier is text message, how do you avoid it becoming the next spam box?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, there's really not a way to avoid it completely, but I would say the best technique is to open up preferences. Although email is not the best way to directly market to a Gen Z, there are a lot of techniques that give the users an opportunity to choose which preferences they want to be communicated and how they want to be communicated. So I would suggest absolutely giving everyone the chance to tell you how to reach them. And as we utilize data to serve up the right content and services to Gen Z and all the other generations as well, it provides a way to give more relevant content. So if you are sending a text message and they've chosen that as their preference of communication, and you're serving up relevant content, then it is more likely that they will not be annoyed, but rather welcome that content in any of the platforms, but particularly in text messaging.
Thank you for that, Jen. What other questions do we have for her?
Jen, I don't know if this was part of your purview or what you might be familiar with, but is there any insight you can share with regard to managing Gen Z as they come into the workplace and in the work environment that really stands out to you as either do this or don't do that, or along the lines of what you just said, really their preference in which to be directed, guided, led to accomplish work?
Yeah, I think, a lot of these behaviors are bleeding through in how they choose who and where to work and how to work with teams. I think going back to the values and the social responsibility, if it is something that they can personally connect with, they're more likely to get on board, work hard and put in the time and effort based on how it's connecting with what they want to achieve. This is a generation that's very tuned into, making changes, whether that's political belief or, other personal beliefs. They are really pushing to get involved in spaces that they can truly relate to on a personal level.
This week has highlighted several of these Gen Z aspects. TikTok being a good example. It's social media, it's on mobile, it's short and quick videos, it's highly organic. It's highlighting a lot of these perspectives that you mentioned, not only in your presentation, but as well as a couple of the other ones. But TikTok is really covering a lot of those boxes.
They truly are, including the, don't forget about the creativity box. I mean, that is something that we're seeing more and more particularly on TikTok, right? I mean, that's why it's doing so well and holding attention, is because they have gotten very creative. The element of entertainment is super important to, as we're consuming content, and I think we're probably all a victim of just scroll. And if something isn't, creative or entertaining, it's hard to figure out what to stop on, much less engage with and take an action.
Do you have any advice on if someone was, say, having a B2C business, if they were to start marketing through TikTok somehow? Do you have any advice on what types of videos to be creating, whether it's, including new age music or, pop culture references, memes, whatever? What is your recommendation on how to approach creating a new TikTok profile?
Yeah, I mean, I think, some of the basic and fundamental things are going to be, number one, understand your audience. Make sure that you are putting out content that aligns with who you're trying to reach. That's super important. If you haven't done the research, then starting to develop content, you could just be kind of throwing some stuff out there, not knowing what the opportunities and things are that are going to really connect. So I think number one, doing the research. Number two, just truly looking at how is your content creative, and is it highlighting the things that we talked about previously with regards to values, making sure that you're covering diversity and equity within the message and within the types of things that are included in the content, I think the other things that tend to work better is if you do have the either running captions or copy that can be consumed along with the video. A lot of times folks are doing other things while they're watching TikTok, and they may not always have sound on. So just ensuring that your copy and call to actions are included there as well and very clear.
In terms of sales, with Gen Zers being more tech savvy and understanding, do you think that, we've heard in the past sessions that anywhere between 8 and 12 touches is what's needed to reach a customer to potentially get them into a lead or make a conversion. Do you think that number is going to be changing for that group?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it could increase on some levels because they are more likely to be utilizing several different devices even at the same time. So I think that's something to consider, is not just the number of touch points, but the number of devices and things that they're actually interacting with. So, they may very easily toggle from a website to an app to using voice to interact with the brand or service. So, considering every single touch point, but also across different channels and devices is going to be incredibly important for brands and services to be successful.
Anything else for Jen? Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. I'm going to hit stop on the